My village is a small piece of land with a few dozen houses, located next to a large dense forest, and a very few people come here. No one in my village knows when this forest existed, and no one dares to set foot in it. Since long time, no wild animals have appeared in this forest, only towering old trees standing side by side. However, the reason this forest has become such a dangerous obsession in my village is that no one has ever set foot in it that ever came back. Considering the story of a cousin in my family, despite the fact that he was lost in the forest and that many people in the village were looking for him, it has been a few years and there have been negative results. One day my best friend invited me to his house to watch a movie while his parents were away. We sat on the couch in the living room all night, watching horror movies. The spooky scenes created a tense atmosphere. I used to be a coward, so whenever a horror scene appeared on TV, I would jump and scream in terror. My friend Quing, seeing that I was a coward, made fun of me right away, eager to have an excuse to stay up all night tonight. I was mocked, which made me angry. I held at my two friends, attempting to demonstrate that I was not as shy as they claim. But Quing didn't think that was enough, so he took out a mid-denomination bill and placed it on the table in front of us, calling it a bet. The game would be a bet to see who dared to take a walk around my village's famous forbidden forest. Because of the aggressiveness, my other friend and I both agreed to bet. Everyone put money on the table, and whoever would win could keep all the money. We were confidently walking to the front of the jungle, unaware of the horror that was waiting for us inside. King was the game's instigator, so he volunteered to take the lead inside. I stood outside staring at his arrogant demeanor, but on the inside, I was feeling extremely uneasy. My friend and I stood huddled together to keep warm, watching Quing rushed inside and vanished in front of us. But it wasn't long before a young man figure emerged from the forest, hurrying from the inside out, looking desperate. I asked my other friend, who was skeptical, if it was our friend Quing. We were certain it was Quing until the figure in the forest became clearer, but seeing his attitude at the time piqued our interest even more. Quing ran until he couldn't breathe, as if he was being pursued by something terrifying behind him, his face still displaying his extreme fear. Quing appeared to fall to the ground at the edge of the forest. We had to hold him with our hands before he could stand, but he mumbled something very frightening. We kept asking Quing what happened in that forest, but it took him a long time to regain his composure and told us about what happened inside the forest. He claimed that there was a terrifying monster inside, and that as soon as he saw it, it rushed to him until out there. But when I looked back, there was no one behind King, which led me to believe that he made up stories to deceive us in order to win all the bets, so we didn't believe it. It took the initiatives to venture deep into the forest, proving Quing's claim that he was more cowardly than me. But this time Quing repeatedly stopped me, not only refusing to let me in, but also agreed to give me all the bets if I went out. I began to feel a little uneasy in my heart at this point, but the entire forest seemed to have some kind of magic that kept urging me to go deeper inside. I took my time walking inside, carefully inspecting my surroundings. I picked up a broken wooden stick lying on the ground as a defense for myself. I took a deep breath and started to walk along the path in front of me. Despite the fact that the two sides of the forest always gave off dark and cold winds, I became intrigued by the scene inside this mysterious forest, but the deeper I went, the quieter the forest became, making me shiver. I was about to turn around at the end when I was drawn in by the rustling sound next to me. I immediately turned my head to look, and there was a strange but very large man walking towards me. This man's face and figure became more visible in the darkness right in front of me. I took a step back to protect myself, holding the wooden stick firmly in my hand just in case of the worst scenario. I kept asking who the man in front of me was, but the other person flatly refused to answer. When the mysterious person was only a few inches away, I was shocked to realize it was my family's long-lost relative. This man did not respond to my question. Instead, he showed a devilish face with 2 lines of bright red blood running down the corners of his mouth. I didn't have time to process what was going on, but the current horror moment gave me a definite answer that I had encountered a monster, just as Quinn had said earlier. This strange monster had a human-like body, but was much larger, and its legs resembled those of a wolf, complete with terrifying black sharp claws. His body was also covered in hair, and his skin sagged, as if only the outer skin covered the bones within. It reached out its hands and approached me where I was standing as if to grab me, leaving me terrified and speechless. I could only raise the wooden stick as a weapon for self-defense. I turned my head and ran away, screaming loudly as I ran, waiting for the monster to let down its guard. But the monster in the back would not let me leave. It kept chasing me to the outside while staggered with its head as if it wanted to separate from its body. I wasn't sure what mystical power this monster had that allowed it to run so fast, but I could hear his footsteps getting closer and closer to where I was standing. He abruptly reached out and grabbed my shoulder. I could feel the cold from my body mixed with the smell of decomposing flesh, making me nauseous and scared, as if I wanted to die again and again. Because there was no other option, I turned around, used all my strength, grabbed the wooden stick and smacked the monster's head hard. My unexpected blow rendered the monster defenseless, causing it to stagger for a few seconds before immobilizing. I took advantage of the brief moment of the opportunity, sprinting towards the forest's edge in an attempt to flee. But the further I ran, the more I felt like I was lost in a maze, as this monster appeared everywhere around me. They stood everywhere, behind the towering trees, lustfully looking at me. I tried to run, and after a few steps I arrived at a safe location where I met 2 friends who were waiting for me. In fear, I rushed to my 2 friends to look for help. I told my friends that I was being pursued by monsters in the deep forest. When they saw my panicked appearance, they grabbed a nearby tree and looked into the depths of the forest. But when I and the others returned, the entire forest was empty, and I had no idea when those monsters vanished. We decided to call the cops because we were so terrified. A few minutes later, the police arrived and accompanied us to the forest to search. The cops went deep inside and discovered the wooden stick I was holding earlier, embedded in a tree right where I fought off the monster. But after searching for a long time and failing to find any more clues, we were reprimanded by the cop. He considered that we were hallucinating because we had consumed too much alcohol. Only later, I realized that this scary forest was set up to lure curious, oblivious people like me inside as prey for a scary monster.